Hi, everyone. I'm David Manx, and welcome to SailPoint Identity Talks. These certainly have been challenging times for organizations, especially IT and security teams. This rapid transition to remote workers has presented major challenges. They've had to figure out in short order how to quickly empower the remote workers with the right tools and applications, how to swiftly onboard hundreds, if not thousands of temporary workers to meet increasing customer demand, and of course, have it all done securely. Today, we're talking to Babar Amin, CTO of Ping Identity. Thanks for joining us today, Babar.
Thank you for having me, David.
Babar, with just about every business going remote, new cybersecurity threats are emerging and increasing every day. With all the bad actors out there, it's never been clear that identity is critical to a modern security approach. Tell us, with this next generation workforce, what types of security controls will enterprises require to enable this new work from home and work from anywhere organizational model?
So it's a good question, David. And your company and my company, we have been working on this together over the past year and a half. But since February of this year, this has become front and center, right? It's not about which organizations have more remote workers. It's which organization doesn't have remote workers anymore, right? And I think what's going to happen is what we see is that as not just the work aspect is remote, but even onboarding is remote, right? Most people don't even think about those things. Imagine bringing a new employee on and you don't get to do document verification like we used to do, right? That's all done remotely. Imagine a physician or a EMT or somebody else who's in a position where they have to prove who they are. They have to prove they have the right, credentials or their training is up to date. All of those were done in person. Now it has to be done remotely. So identification becomes, and identity proofing and identification become a very, very core, basic foundation that everything builds upon. Because if you don't know that who this person is or process or device is, then you can't trust anything after that. You can't trust what they tell you. You can't trust the data they put into the system. You can't trust what they're doing to the system. And you can't trust any actions they take either on their behalf or on somebody else's behalf, or modify where the system takes actions. So all of that trust is anchored on knowing. Without knowing, it all falls apart.
Great. Hey, speaking of security, and you talked a lot about trust, let's talk about zero trust identity. What can you tell us about zero trust and why is it so important in this new work model?
So same kind of concept, right? I actually, zero trust is a term, but I'd like not to use zero trust because it kind of brings bad connotation, like, you don't trust anything. It's more, I think of it more as ephemeral trust, right? Where trust is constantly evaluated and reasserted rather than zero, right? The reason it comes zero is that it just means don't assign it based on a discrete event. And this is very important from a governance perspective, because governance is all about making sure that the entitlements are checked as to who should have access to what, right? The concept of least privilege comes into play. Don't give people all the different entitlements, right? Don't make me equal to my peer, right? Maybe I'm similar, but I don't access the same applications. Maybe I don't need access there. So why just, grant access? In our world, as you're familiar, we call it orphan access, right? Don't do that. And then another place where governance comes into play is visibility. You cannot monitor something if you don't have visibility, right? So this is where the governance in conjunction with what access control systems do, which is to enforce that entitlement, enforce that governance, they kind of come together and really shine a light on what has happened in the system and also what should happen in the system, right? So it's both sides.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today on our Identity Talks. I know this is an extremely important topic, and we're going to be talking a lot about this in the future. Thanks again.
Thank you, David.